Hi, I'm back. What I'm going to quickly share is 4 dreams that I've had in the last 5 weeks-ish, back from the start of October, in the first week of October. So let me try and squeeze this into 15 minutes. I'm going to have a go. The reason I'm sharing these is because God shows me things that are going on in the world, and he shows it in a way that I can understand, and I'm just sharing that so that other people can be aware of it. And I've also got verses that he has shown me to confirm what he showed me and bring it back to his word, because I think that's important. Okay, so this first dream is very long. There's 4 parts to it. So the first part, there was a group of people sitting in a room, and they were wanting to learn about spiritual truth, and they were absorbing what this man in the front of the room was telling them, and he was teaching them false doctrine. They were very hungry and wanting to know the truth, and so they were pretty much taking whatever was being told to them. And I walked past the room and I saw what was going on, and I could see the spiritual undertone of what was happening, and they were being deceived and being led astray. And I went into the room next door. There was a man in there who was a Bible teacher, who represented someone that is well known within the church that I go to. And I told them what was going on next door. And as soon as I told them, they didn't waste any time. They boldly stood up, walked to next door into the room, and started speaking over the top of the other person who was speaking to mislead them and lie to them. But the people they recognized this straight away, that person was overpowering the other, and that what they were saying was true, and they were absorbing it. And as soon as he realized that he had their attention, he led them into the room where I was. And all of them, every single one of them, gave their lives to Jesus. So I think that's just representing the time that we're in at the moment. There's a lot of people that want to know the truth, and they're very hungry for it. So you'll be surprised that there'll be people just coming out of the woodworks wanting to know the truth of the kingdom. So that's the season that we're living in now. There was also a second part of this dream, which was a little bit complex. There was a board, and it was a riddle. There was different symbols on the riddle. The main ones that I remember, that there was a pearl in a shell, and then there was a symbol that looked like a trident's fork, so with the 3 like prongs on it, and it also had hidden in it 3 numbers, and it was a 1 and then a 2 and then a 0. And my brother brought this to me, and he asked me a question that was written down on the instructions of it. And he said, "What is her number?" That was like what the instructions said. And I looked at it, and God revealed to me 120 days. So it's the 120 that was hidden in something. And I picked up on it. I said, it's 120 days. I don't know if it's meaning 120 days from the day that I had this dream. It was on the 4th of October. So that would be, about 4 months. So I'm not sure what that means. That needs a little bit more of interpretation, because there was a lot of depth to that one. The third part of it was I entered into a room, and there was a man prophesying over some of the world, the elite people of the world, and in the room there was Prince William and Ellen DeGeneres, and I was watching them. My eyes were on them, and I could hear the man prophesying. He was speaking God's word, and it was just God's judgment. He was coming through this man as the vessel, and they were receiving it. They couldn't do anything about it. They just had to stand there and listen. It was like they were standing in a courtroom. And I remember seeing the reaction on Ellen DeGeneres' face, and she was very unsettled. She was trying to plead with the man and trying to make a bargain with him to be lenient on her for the things that she had done. And then the other thing was what I actually physically heard the man saying, and he spoke to Prince William, and he said, because of the things that you have done, your son is not going to live past the age of 7. And I, in the dream, was thinking in my head, okay, what son is he talking about? And as I asked the question in my mind, the man said to him, how old is your son now? And he replied, he is 3 years old. And then when I woke up from this dream, I actually looked up, and he has a son who is the second oldest son, and he's just over 2.5. So that could be something maybe that's going to happen in the future. I'm not sure. But he said he wouldn't live past the age of 7. So this was just a judgment that was being delivered to them. They couldn't actually do anything about it. God had already made up his mind, and this was going to be repaying them for what they had, the things that they committed that were wrong. And the fourth part of this dream is a little bit more troubling, because it was to do with the deception that's going to come over the world soon. And I think all of these things are happening at the same time. So they're all going on in the same season is why I was shown it. There was a group of people walking down a street, and they were parading and singing, and they were holding up Israeli flags, and they were singing, and they were saying the words that they were singing were similar to the peace of the God of the Bible is coming to the earth. And they believed this, that it was God sending it to them, this peace that they'd been wanting, that everyone had been waiting for. But they were deceived, and they were actually under the influence of the world's system and the new world order that's going to come in, and they actually were leading others astray. But they didn't realize this. They actually genuinely thought, oh, this is a good thing, this is good, God must have given this to us. But I was aware that that was not the kingdom of God that they were speaking about. It was the world's way and man's way of making peace. But they were told that it was the promised peace that God would bring to the world through the Messiah. So that's what people are still waiting for who don't believe in Jesus. The Jews are still waiting for this. So it must be something to do with Israeli people that actually didn't recognize Jesus as the Messiah. So this is things still to come. But it was a little bit alarming, because I knew that there was definitely going to be a lot of confusion, because they thought that this was the real thing. And then on that was the 4th. So on the 6th of October, I had a dream. I was sitting in a stadium, and there was I was down in the front rows. There was a whole stadium of people, and they were watching this man, and he was entertaining them by playing with crocodiles and showing them things that the crocodiles could do. And the crocodiles, obviously, I don't know if you know, most dreams that they represent just demonic influence. And then at one point, this very large crocodile got unsettled and stirred up all of the water, and everyone kind of jumped and sort of tried to back off and get away from it, because they were like, oh, this is a bit more dangerous than what we were expecting it to be. And then as soon as that happened, it was like there was something going on in the water that was stirring them all up. And I noticed that there was something else, and I looked behind. The dream was set in the nighttime as well, so it's like no one could really see that this was coming, and because mainly they were distracted by what was going on. There was a huge tsunami that was right there, and that's had to be something to do with what was stirring the water up. But it was this massive wall, and there was no way that anyone could escape it whatsoever. I saw it, And as soon as I saw it, I just asked Jesus to protect me. This was a very, very real experience, by the way. Like, it really like shook me up when I woke up from it. But as soon as I asked Jesus to save me from it, he took me up. Some angels, something must have been what it was, but they took me up and through the water, but I was still okay, like I was still breathing. So that was that. There's something going on in the like the demonic influences that are over the world that is distracting people, and they're going to be caught off guard by something very big. So that was that. And then 2 days after that, I had another dream that was kind of similar thing to do with like oncoming danger that people weren't going to be ready for. And it was shown to me with 4 different types of animals, right? So all these animals could survive in the water. And the water was represented in this dream as the world. There was the shore, the beach, and then there was the ocean. And at the start, all the animals were in the water. So that's representing everybody who's in the world. So different, I believe it's different types of people with different types of faith and beliefs. And there was sharks in the water that was stirring up everything, and every other animal was trying to get away from the danger. But there were some animals that couldn't escape it. They were stuck in the water. They couldn't move from it. And then there was others that could survive on the land as well. And they actually came straight up out of the water, and they just were getting away from it. This dream there was a lot of depth to it spiritually, and it was very vivid. And I believe that God showed me that what it represents is there was the smallest animals in that line of them there was penguins, and they actually were able to speak, but when they spoke, they had spiritual understanding and insight. It was strange. It was like they spoke like a person, but like someone who had childlike faith. And so that's what I realized, was that the ones who it was like everything was being turned upside down, and the ones who seemed to be very well established and were wise in a worldly sense, they were stuck, like really stuck and ingrained in the worldly ways, and they actually didn't know how to get away from the danger. But the ones who had the faith, they had like divine like understanding, and they were able to speak like the mysteries of God to me. Like one of them approached me and started speaking all these revelations and things, and I was like, okay, these are the ones that are going to do well in this season, the ones that have a spiritual understanding and they actually are close to God, which will be the opposite of what you expect when you look at people from a worldly perspective. But it's going to be the opposite, because in God's kingdom it turns everything sort of upside down. So that was that one. But they all came out and they all sort of grouped together, and then they were okay. But there was a lot going on in the water, and you sort of had to remove yourself from it. Otherwise, you're going to be in a lot of danger. And the other dream that I had, I'm going to quickly see if I can get through it. God was showing me to do with the church and to do with the people in the world. So he showed me this there was an ocean, and then there was a canal that ran along the side of like a cliff face, where there was people from church that I know that were all camped along this water, and this huge tsunami, but not a wall of water, like just a tsunami that sort of all the water just comes in. It came right up against their tents, but they didn't realize what was going on. And I said, did you know, like, there's all this water outside your tent, like, can you see it? But they couldn't see it. And then there was a lot of water that was coming in from inland, and it was filling up. So like the opposite of how it would work, but it was moving from rivers and things that were coming out from the land to the coast. So it was like they were meeting in the middle, and they were filling up pools, and it just represents the people that are not, you wouldn't identify them as being God's people because they don't really go to church as such, but they are still God's children. But they were coming back, and it was like the two pools of water were coming together and sort of like aligning in this season. So yes, quickly, 10 seconds left. Yeah, that was 4 dreams.